Why do we feel it's necessary to yak about bullshit in order to be comfortable?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Welcome back, guys. Sorry for the technical delay. If you're coming back, if you're not back, I don't blame you. We had a bit of an audio issue. Don't know what it was. Should be resolved now. I hope it's resolved now. If it isn't, I'm out of options. Went through the whole OBS settings, went through YouTube and everything, reset all the audio. So if you hear 6 of me, we got problems. If you don't hear anything of me, that's great. And we're going to hope it stays that way. But you guys are wondering, what's with the title? Deported Gringo. No gringo. As you can tell, I'm not a gringo. Gringo had to leave the country. His time to stay here was up. So he's got to go to the U.S. He's got to be there for a little bit. I think he's got to be there for like a day or two. And then he can come back. He should be back tomorrow now. He left yesterday night, or the other night. I can't remember. Everything happened so quickly. So it's just me flying solo, going through the news and days of politics. A little more of a different vibe than normal. I don't have Gringo next to me, which is a little weird. It's just me. I mean, I kind of have a Gringo here. I mean, I got a Snorlax. Don't know why that's there, but it's here. So whatever you want, if you have any questions, thank you, Gringo. Gringo will be in the chat maybe the whole time, maybe not. We'll see. He's kind of tired. Don't blame me, Gringo. But with that, we're going to transition here, and we're going to hope that this transition holds up. Yes, I can share my screen. We're going to redo some Turkish news, even though that's what we started off with on the last Late Night Gringo stream. But like I said, audio issues. Ain't that a bitch? So as I was saying prior, which you probably didn't understand because you heard 6 of me talking, there were large political protests in Istanbul, and this is mostly related to Erdogan and him jailing his political opponent and what is, or at least perceived to be his next political opponent in the presidential race in Turkey, and that is the mayor of Istanbul, Ekrem İmamoğlu. I'm gonna hope I pronounced that name correctly. I probably didn't, but that's okay. Now, he was arrested on what charges? I'm not 100% sure, but apparently they're pretty bogus, right? We had hundreds of thousands of people protesting in Turkey, I believe just throughout the country, I think mostly in Istanbul, if I'm not mistaken, against President Erdogan and his decision to jail him. Now, technically, this is the court's decision, but they allege that the courts are not independent. And yes, Gringo, you got deported. The airport does kind of suck sometimes. I've been through many, though. You know what sucks? Panama City Airport. Don't go there, people. I mean, go to Panama City. Don't hang out in the airport for too long. So obviously, a lot of people are unhappy with that, especially people on the opposition side, which I think seems to be right now a majority, at least from what I understand the political situation in Turkey. I could be wrong, but it looks like Erdogan has kind of lost a lot of his popularity. He's quite authoritarian for a democratic nation. He's been in there for a while now. Now, the protests have been mostly peaceful, as it says here, but nearly 2,000 people have been detained. Now, that's probably because some of those became a little violent, probably some resistance against police clearing them out in certain areas. Something that's typical, not really surprising. Hopefully it's nothing like political. Now this is from so a letter from Imam was read aloud at one of these rallies. I think this rally in particular, the other night or other evening, day, whatever it was. So it was read out from the crowd, or read out to the crowd. I have no fear. You are behind me and by my side. I have no fear because the nation is united. The nation is united against the oppressor, the letter said. They can put me in jail and try me as much as they want. The nation has shown that it will crush all traps and plots. So yeah, you had hundreds of thousands of people come out, support, hear this letter, and just kind of have a lot more motivation to actually stick it out. Because I'm sure Erdogan right now is probably hoping that this blows over in a couple of days and people forget about this political nominee or opponent that he has and, disappears essentially, as you do in most despot countries. Now, The main opposition, Republicans People's Party, which I'm going to assume is more liberal opposition. I could be wrong. But usually if you have People's Party in your name, it's a little liberal. Um, Other opposition parties included rights groups and some Western powers have all said the case against Imamoglu is a politicized effort to eliminate a potential electoral threat to Erdogan, which is not surprising. Um, it's a classic story of I have power, I've been in here for longer than I should, how can I stay in here for longer? Jail everyone who's possibly going against me. Now, the government denies any influence, all right, over the judiciary and says the courts are independent. Listen, I'm just saying this doesn't seem very independent of the courts. It seems very convenient for Erdogan. I don't think the mayor of Istanbul is, as of this moment. Now, I'm not really well informed on Turkish politics. I'll be 100% honest. Yeah, why was? Yeah, that's probably why Turkish Airlines was so busy today. Either people are flying back or trying to get out of there right now. Now, clearly, the government denies over influence of the judiciary. Listen, if the government comes out and says they didn't do something, it probably means they did something, especially from Turkey or really any country that is not a really, how should I say, shining example of what a democracy should be. And that includes Western Europe, some East Asian democracies, and the United States. And I'll throw in some Latin American countries, but even then, they've had their fair share of history of issues when it comes to political opponents and opposition. Now, obviously, thousands are here chanting justice will be served. Now, this was organized by the CHP, so I'm assuming that's the same party. Yes, the Republicans People Party, which I'm assuming the mayor is part of. Because why else would you assume? Why else would you organize this party unless he's one of your candidates? Now, police imposed a tight security around a venue where opposition supporters were gathering. Again, not surprising. Probably want to keep a good eye on them. Maybe figure out what if anyone's going to be violent, right? Now, one of the banners said, "If justice is silent, the people will speak." I am not afraid. A bunch of people here. You have a bunch of normal, everyday people, and some of the leaders making some quotes here today, pretty much showing their support for I'm going to say Imamoglu, the presidential candidate against Erdogan, and probably also thanks to the support of the Turkish people. So, yeah, it's not looking good for Erdogan. Now, on top of that, this has really tanked the Turkish market, which, if I recall correctly, prior to this was actually doing pretty well. With the whole Russian war, Russian-Ukraine war, right? So they were kind of a big deal in terms of trading. Once again, so because of this, that any bonuses or plus you got from that conflict have just pretty much completely been wiped off. As you can see, your Turkish financial assets have plunged, prompting the central bank to use reserves to support the lira. The turmoil has sent shockwaves through the private sector as well. So, yeah, it's not looking good. The banks are having problems. They had to go through their reserves. So that just screams bad news for Erdogan, bad news for the economy of Turkey, and probably a lack of foreign investment because I imagine, international businesses or just businesses in general don't want to invest money into a country where they don't even know where the political future lies. Is it going to be solely Erdogan? Is there going to be a democracy? Is it going to go properly? Civil war is probably on the table in terms of what they're thinking. I don't think it's going to go to a civil war, but hey, I've been surprised more often than not in my short 21 years of existence on this world. But with that, that's Turkey. I'm going to monitor this situation a little closer. I think this will probably not go away. I think Erdogan expects it to go away. It probably won't. But with that, we're going to actually move to the Far East again, or further east. We're going to South Korea, baby. Now, I saw this article yesterday, and I was a little confused because I was wondering, what is adoption fraud? And then I read the last half of this article. Well, maybe not this article in particular, but another article. And it pretty much sums it up for you. They were taking the children. That's pretty much. They're taking children from mothers in South Korea, and apparently in like the 80s, if I read here correctly. Or in the 90s here. Adopted at 3 months old by Danish family, she became first interested in her place of birth, South Korea, through martial arts. Which led her to visit the country in the 1990s and began studying. So yeah, it looks like she was taken in the 80s or even prior to that. And her mother didn't have a choice. She had to give up her daughter, which is honestly quite horrific if you think about it. If you're a parent out there and you're listening in, imagine having your kid and South Korea wants to take advantage of eager foreigners who want to adopt a child, maybe from Asia in particular, or just in general. In order to take advantage of that kind of desire, they take your child away. They falsify their documents saying they have no parents, and if you don't comply, they threw you in an asylum, and your baby was shipped off to the other side of the world, whether that was Europe or the U.S. So that's honestly quite terrifying, and it's honestly quite surprising that you have a government admitting that they did this. Usually, countries that they do this do not admit it. They pretty much hold it on, hold it close to their chest for like 100 years, if not longer. So yeah, on Wednesday, the country's Truth and Reconciliation Commission released preliminary results of its nearly 3-year ongoing investigation. So this has been going on for a while, and for the first time, acknowledged that human rights abuses occurred, which again, not really surprising. So yeah, more than 200,000, Jesus, 200,000 South Korean children were adopted to families in foreign countries after an armistice halted the Korean War in 1953, and the country's government failed in its duty to protect their rights, the commission said in a damning report. So essentially, the government just said, hey, the war is over. How do we get money? Give kids away, which is simplifying it, but that is crazy. The commission is examining more than 360 cases submitted by adoptees from 11 countries, found that some children were taken without their parents' knowledge or consent, which that's shocking, and that adoption agency directors at times illegally acted as a guardian to sign off on the adoption. Wow. All of the cases involved adoptees sent overseas between 64 and 99. So this went up to, only 20 years ago, this kind of stuff, and include countries such as the United States, Norway, Sweden, Germany, and Canada. So that's obviously not looking great. And this is just 360 cases. Who knows about the people from the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, or the people who don't even know. Imagine if you're a parent out there in maybe the US or Europe, and you've got a kid you adopted from South Korea, and you're probably taking, after looking at this story, you might take a closer look at those adoption papers and their birth certificates. So they were falsifying everything. They falsified if they were orphaned or abandoned. Yeah, actually it says right here. Records were falsified to incorrectly state that children were abandoned or orphaned, and their original identities, as well as information about their birth families, were either lost, falsified, or fabricated. Pretty bad. Pretty bad, South Korea. And you did this for like 50 years, 40 years, 40-ish, 46 years if you go from exactly 64 to 99. Well, actually, no, those are the cases. They technically started this off in 53, right? Yeah, this technically started around 53, 54. So they've been doing this for about 50 years, which is, that's got to be horrifying. Now, I did read in another article, I don't think it says right here, but if mothers did try to pursue that they had a child that was taken and sent overseas to another family, or that she knows that her daughter or son, whatever, was taken from her, the government would actually put them in insane asylums, which is South Korea. That's fucked up. You took a mother who's like, "Where's my baby?" and you said, "No, there's no baby here. Here's a padded cell for the rest of your life." And I guess maybe also the brainwashed them that they didn't have a kid, which is honestly shocking. It also says here, which is also more concerning, adoptive families often were not vetted. In 84 alone, 99% of immigration applications for adoptees were approved on the same or the following day. So they weren't doing a good job of protecting these kids from ending up in not too good homes. So yeah, this pretty much goes on and on and on about the horrors and the human rights abuses, not only towards the mothers, but also the adoptees, since, you're pretty much ripping a baby away from their mother and child. So yeah, it's pretty bad. It's one of the most horrific things I think I could have read this past week. So yeah, that's South Korea for you. They wanted cash. They needed cash. They didn't have a great economy in the 50s after the war. North Korea was seen as the better country at the time in terms of economics and industry. And they said, hey, we have kids. Send them off for adoption. And I guess they just didn't stop even when they had their boom and American bucks backing them. So that's honestly really sad. I don't really have much more to add outside that it's horrifying. But that's South Korea. I hope they go through the cases and reunite these people with their actual biological parents. Of course, they probably don't consider them as their parents anymore because they were raised in another country. But these mothers and maybe even fathers to an extent, but I think mostly the mothers, at the very least, deserve some sort of closure and an opportunity to see the child that they had that was unfortunately taken away from them too soon. And I hope they get compensation. You deserve compensation to not only just probably the mothers, but also to the children. I mean, talk about a traumatizing event. So with that, I think we're done talking about world news, Turkey, South Korea. We're gonna kind of stay a little international because we're gonna go to universities. Um, Rubio says State Department has revoked more than 300 student visas. Now, that's kind of surprising to me as a former university student myself. How many students are, I mean, 300, okay, in the grand scheme of things, 300 is not a lot. If you look at every university in the international pool of students that are learning in the United States or at least at American universities, uh, it is not a lot in the grand scheme, but it is still surprising to see that 300 student visas were pulled. So, yeah, as the Trump administration continues to detain and deport pro Palestinian student activists at universities across the country, the wave of revocation is part of a larger push by the Trump administration to punish its perceived enemies or critics and crack down on higher education institutions that the president has lambasted as bastions of liberalism for years. Now, this is a political, so it's going to lean a little left. I don't think they're exactly going after higher education institutions that are seen as leaning left or super left. I mean, we're going to go to some other universities here. Already talked about another university, University of Alabama, I believe it is, which is in the South. I mean, I'm sure it's not exactly the most conservative university, but it's definitely not the most liberal university. Um, but yeah, you have visas, hundreds of visas being pulled, including here this room. I'm going to horribly mispronounce this man's name. Rumisa Ozturk, a Tufts University doctoral student and Fulbright scholar from Turkey who had her student visa revoked this week. Oh, Turkey again. A viral video was posted online by officials from the State Department showed Ozturk, who co-wrote an op-ed in a student newspaper criticizing Tufts' response to the protests, being detained on the streets by plainclothes immigration and customs enforcement near the Tufts campus. So essentially, ICE agents were pretty much waiting for her on campus. So you have ICE agents now on campus, which I don't know how much I feel about that. It's a little weird, but at the same time, it's the U.S. They have jurisdiction. If these people are out there supporting Hamas and terrorist organizations, they listen. You made a mistake going to the U.S. I mean, as the Gringo said last time, and as the Gringo says here, deport them just like they deported an equal. It's like they deported you. Yeah, equal deportation. That's fair, Gringo. You know, well, Gringo, they're getting deported by the U.S. They got deported by Mexico. Well, not really deported by Mexico. You self-deported yourself before Mexico did it for you. But yeah, listen, I mean, you sign on the visa, and we talked about this in the questionnaire. Do you support terrorist organizations? You write no. If you write yes, it's an automatic fail. So you write no. If you're involved in these protests and you have a visa, you got to be very careful with your actions afterwards, because guess what? You're supporting Hamas. Now, I know people are trying to make a distinction between Palestine and Hamas, and that's honestly really fair. Hamas is a terrorist organization. Palestine is the idea of an Arab state in the Holy Land, is what I'll say, right? One is recognized, one is not really recognized. But Hamas claims the problem is Hamas claims to represent Palestine, and a lot of these protests were based around the Israeli-Palestinian war, still ongoing right now, and the October 7th events of the hostage taking and the hostages that are still being held by Hamas, and you guys showed support for that. Listen, if you show support for that, you are not showing support for Palestine, you're showing support for Hamas. You cannot protest the war and not protest against not only Israel, but then protest in support of Hamas. Because essentially what you're doing is you're supporting Gaza, and the only ruling party in Gaza is Hamas. I mean, the PLO in the West Bank, as people probably know, or people don't even know, I'll give you this for a little insight, doesn't really work. The West Bank doesn't already have a really good government, if not a government at all. But Hamas is the only functioning one in Gaza, because the PLO couldn't hold on to its position and allowed this terrorist organization to run everything. So you have to be very careful if you go out to protest. I will say that, because I do believe in the right to protest. Now, granted, I don't believe you should be supporting Hamas. I disagree with what the students are protesting, because you know what? A country has its right to defend itself after a horrific incident. Now, do I wish the war was over? I wish all wars were over. But listen, we live in a world where war is constant, and where war is a business. So obviously, that's a little bit of a dream for me to have, right? Um, but yeah, listen, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. I mean, here they mentions that the Colombian graduate student Mahmoud Kali, over his role. We've talked about him enough. He's probably gonna get deported. But essentially, yeah, they got rid of everyone. Oh, but they didn't get rid of everyone. But they're on their way to getting rid of everyone who is participating in these protests, which you really shouldn't be protesting. Don't protest in favor of Hamas. That is a terrorist organization. We have listed it as such. I have done research on them. I had to do a paper in my counterterrorism class. Now, I'm not going to say that making an expert in terrorism, of course, but I'm going to say I am a little more familiar with the things they do. Listen, human shields is a horrific thing to do, and it's the thing they practice very often. So we're not. I'm not going to support them. I don't support them. Uh, don't do it. If you're a student, don't do it. Your visa's worth too much. Your future's worth too much. Continuing off of this, right off to Columbia. So Columbia University alumni rip up their diplomas in protest of school and leadership. So this has to do with the whole Columbia graduate Mahmoud Kali. Hopefully I pronounced his last name there correctly. Him being detained by ICE immigration, probably going to be deported by the end of next month, I imagine. I imagine those courts move pretty quickly. So here we had some Colombian graduates pretty much ripping up their papers, which, I mean, look at them. They're very privileged people. Let's be honest. If you are able to go to Columbia and graduate, you are a privileged and blessed person. Whether you came from a difficult background or not, you were given either funds or money, or you had the money to go there. So these are not exactly your normal people. These people do not really know a tough day in a tough world. I'll be 100% honest. That's the vibe I get with that. I also think it's a little dumb. You're ripping up your diploma. Now, technically, you're ripping up your physical diploma. It's not like you haven't used it to get your job. They definitely use it to get their job. They probably hold a job currently using that diploma. So this is just pretty much just a show just to gather attention and kind of try to put pressure on a school that is desperate to keep its money from the federal government, which honestly it doesn't need. I mean, listen, Columbia University is an Ivy League school. It has plenty of money from its students, its donors, and its entire system of funding. It does not need federal backing. You know what needs federal backing? Public colleges or even community colleges all over the country outside of the East Coast. I mean, I'm from the East Coast. I'm from Massachusetts. I can tell you, we have plenty of money up there. I drove through Alabama. If you're from Alabama, I'm sorry to say this, you guys don't have a lot of money down there. Maybe in Mobile or a little outside of there where NASA has some operations, I know. But beyond that, you guys probably need the funding more than Columbia. So I'm in favor of taking the money away from them. So yeah, again, it goes into more depth here about Mahmoud Kali. He was arrested, green card holder. ICE arrested him. He hasn't been seen for a minute, right? Now here, one of the people here said it's not easy to do this with none of us doing this lightly. There's no joy in this, said Amali Tower, a 2009 SIPA graduate who spoke at the protest. Tower said, as an immigrant who experienced displacement, she had to fight hard to get her master's in international affairs at Columbia. Listen, no, you didn't. You had to fight hard to get good grades. But as a Columbia University is one of the most liberal universities in the world, right? Yeah, spend $200,000 to earn a piece of paper and then rip it up in a temper tantrum. Really, this is what this is. It's a temper tantrum. As the Gr1ngo here writes in chat, it's clear that these people don't know a tough day in their lives, even if you are an immigrant. And listen, nothing against immigrants. My mother's an immigrant. Nothing against them. You have a right. You're a U.S. citizen now. Congratulations, welcome to the country. But you should know, just like anyone else, supporting a terrorist organization is wrong. And there's no argument for it. There really is no argument for it. Now here, the Trump administration said it wants to deport Kali because of his role in the pro-Palestinian protests on campus and accused him of being a threat to foreign policy, and which he kind of is. I mean, he's causing disruption on campus in Columbia, at Columbia University. He's preventing Israeli students of Jewish faith from going to class who pay just as much money. Listen, I'm not saying you can't hold a protest. Now, granted, I think you shouldn't hold a protest for Hamas, period. But if you want to hold a protest for Palestine, I'm sure you can go down to the New York governor's, or not New York governor's, the New York City mayor's office, file some paperwork, or even just show up in a public park. I'm not saying do it in Central Park. Please don't do that. That's a mess waiting to happen. And you can hold a protest there. You shouldn't be taking over a university campus where people are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to attend a university that is considered top in the world in order to better their lives and better their futures. It's wrong for you to just take that. It's selfish. It's extremely selfish because listen, those people may agree with you. They may not agree with you, right? That's no reason to go in there and prevent these students from having class. That's what they pay for, having their class. Now, as now Secretary of State Marco Rubio says here, once you've lost your visa, you're no longer legal in the United States, and we have a right, like every country in the world has a right to remove you from our country. And Rubio's right. Listen, you have a visa because we thought you were a good person and you had enough merit attached to you to enter our country. You answered a question. Do not support terrorist organization. You're protesting for Hamas. It's cut and dry. Whether you want to argue you're protesting for Palestine, the problem is this: Hamas is not Palestine. So when you protest for Hamas and you protest for the issue in Gaza, you're automatically on the side of Hamas, not Palestine. If it was the West Bank we're talking about, maybe a little different, right? Because the PLO is there. But we're talking about Hamas. You cannot separate the two anymore right now. Since October 7th, we can't separate it. I mean, the families, and as Gr1ngo says here, families of October 7th hostages are suing this guy because there's evidence that he may have known about the attacks ahead of time. Listen, if those documents are unsealed as a judge like you're hoping for, and it's true this man had previous knowledge or prior knowledge because he's Palestinian of the attacks occurring, this guy is in a lot more trouble than just getting deported, all right? And honestly, it makes the entire protest on Columbia University look like a shit show because guess what? The guy organized them. So if he did have knowledge, of the attacks prior, this is not a good look for the University of Columbia because they put up with him and they actually kind of allowed him to do this for a while. They only started acting strict with him was when Trump said federal funding is going to be cut. And listen, people need their nice bonuses, all right? The presidents and the board of directors at that university, I'm sure they appreciate the free money they get to pocket from federal funding or just funding in general. Now, what else here? Now, of course, Columbia is not the only school where students have been detained. Foreign-born students at Tufts University, Georgetown University, and the University of Minnesota have also been taken into federal custody. I know this is a little behind because also the University of Alabama, I don't know if it was a professor or a student, but we're going to get into that a little later, was also taken into custody by ICE, which is not surprising. Just don't do this, guys. Listen, visa is hard enough to get. Learning here is hard enough to get. Getting here is hard enough to get. Some people think it should be harder. You should be appreciative of the opportunity you've been afforded. You live a privileged life here. Whether you're poor or not, you get a ton of help from the universities. Don't do it. Don't do it. Not only is it wrong, but just don't do it for your sake. Speaking of Alabama, ICE detains University of Alabama doctoral student as government's college crackdown continues. Or college. Listen, guys, I speak like 3 languages, so when I read words sometimes, I mispronounce them. I apologize. According to ICE records, Iranian national, that's not great to start off with, Alireza Dorudi, sorry for the pronunciation again, is currently being held in a detention facility after he was recently detained. Listen, the background's not looking great. You're Iranian, and if you're in any support for Hamas, you're going to have issues. Why was he actually detained here? Let's see. Trump, administration continues to target non-citizens in higher education. Again, this is NBC News, so it's a little left-leaning, so that's going to probably try to make this the case for him. Detained off campus so the university said in a Wednesday statement that the student was recently detained off campus, so not on campus, off campus, by federal immigration authorities due to federal privacy laws. The college couldn't reveal any more about the case, but it added that international students are valued members of the campus community. So we're not even sure why he was arrested, but we just know he was arrested. Now, he wasn't done on campus, he was done off campus, right? Which NBC and a lot of these news outlets would probably lead you to believe that ICE is probably storming these campuses and looking to arrest these people in their class, on their way to lunch, or on their way to other classes in between. Not happening. They're finding them in their homes or waiting for them at their homes or wherever they know they're going to be. Yeah, the Crimson White. I saw this because I actually, at my university, I studied abroad. There was a University of Alabama student who did study abroad, and I got to know them. And I think I do follow them on Instagram. They actually posted this, so I did see this. The Crimson White is like their university newspaper. So it reported that the man is Iranian national Ali Reza Dorudi, a doctoral candidate studying mechanical engineering. He was arrested at home at 5 a.m. Eastern Tuesday, the newspaper reported. But they also don't know why he was arrested for. U.S. Immigration, ICE Customs, and the Department of Homeland Security did not immediately respond to requests for comment. So, again, not sure why he was arrested. They probably have good reasons, I imagine. And in here, they talk about the Tufts University, Ozturk, as we talked about previously, being arrested in the street in Massachusetts by ICE officers. Now, that was actually caught on video. But yeah, several other students. So there's growing concern, of course, that if you're an international student on campus, if you're going to get arrested. Listen, I'm here to tell you this. I was an international student technically at a university in Italy. Even though it was an American university, I'm still an international student. No one's arresting you. No one's going to take you off campus if you're not doing it. If you're not doing anything wrong and you're not doing anything you should be doing, you're going to be fine, right? Just don't do stupid things, right? You know the questions you answered. You know it's wrong to support a terrorist organization. And if you don't think Hamas is a terrorist organization, I welcome you to do your personal research on them. I can send you some documents. I can send you some readings. The things they do are horrific, all right? Not just the human shielding, but everything else. And even in the conflict right now, they take the food away from people and keep it for their own soldiers. They hoard it. They're not good people. They're not a good people. I mean, people who take hostages are not good people, all right? If you have to take a hostage, you're probably not on the good side of things. Now, I'm not saying there haven't been incidents in history where people have gone to extremes because of extremes that were imposed on them. It's understandable from a point of view, sure. It's not reasonable. I'm not condoning Hamas. You shouldn't condone Hamas. I'm not condoning, sorry. You should condone Hamas. Shouldn't is the wrong word. You should condone Hamas. Everything they're doing is horrible. Everything they've done is horrible. You should not be protesting on their behalf. It's just not a good idea. So if you're an international student in an American university, do not protest in favor of Hamas. Stay away from the conflict in general, even if you have a strong feeling towards Palestine. You know it's wrong. And if you do want to protest for Hamas, it's all your right. It's your right completely to go do that. Of course, the consequences are being deported, so don't be upset when you're sitting in a nice detention center and they're wheeling your way, or taking you, wheeling you, whatever, taking you to your airplane, back to your home country, and not here. Because, listen, you don't deserve to be here if you do that. So with that, we've covered, I think, enough about university students and deportation and protesting for Hamas. Don't do it. It's simple. But we're actually going to go on to Disney, and this is our last story for the stream. The FCC investigates Disney for DEI practices, Chair says. Now, I'm going to be 100% honest. I have not read this article. I saw this article right before I was going to stream, and I said to myself, this looks interesting, and it looks like something the Gr1ngo would love. So, Gr1ngo, if you're still watching, this seems like it's right up your alley, right? Because now the federal government is on Disney's ass, which is kind of hilarious. And yeah, the president of Colombia, who was here for just a few days ago, yeah. Again, I mean, Colombia is a mess. So the Federal Communications Commission is investigating Disney for its diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. Not surprising, Disney, very well known for race swapping in its movies, fairy tales, TV shows, really everything. And its attempt to promote a weird perversion of diversity in the workforce and just in general. Listen, I have no problem with people being a different skin color. I'm mixed. I'm brown. I hope I don't have a problem with people being a different skin color. I mean, my father's Gr1ngo. He's white. He's Gr1ngo. So I'm not against people being hired who are of different race. But I do have a problem if that's the reason why you're hiring them, because that's just one demeaning to me and other people who have a different color of the skin than the majority. Because it just shows that, or it just says to me that either I'm not good enough, or the only reason I'm being hired is because I have my skin color, and you just want to write that off on a federal report that, hey, we hire brown people, right? So it's not great. Never mind, we're not even getting to gender and all that fun stuff. So while Disney started as an iconic American company, it recently went all in on DEI. FCC head Brendan Garr said Friday in a post on X. Yeah, DEI does suck. It does suck. I'll be honest. I think the idea of DEI came from a good place in the sense of like, oh, people just wanted to help other people who they thought were disenfranchised or just kind of looked over by society, or were just in an unfortunate circumstance in comparison to another race, right? So I think it came from a good heart. It was not implemented right. It was not created correctly. DEI should be for those. Like DEI should be, hey, let's take a look at somebody because they're qualified, but also they're qualified from a rough circumstance. And I don't care if they're white or brown. You can listen. Being poor, people do. The idea of poor does not care about your skin color, right? You can be white and poor. You can be brown and poor. You can be green and poor. All right, and money is green. And if you're green and poor, shit, you're out of luck. So DEI, I'm not really behind it. I don't like it. Yeah, hiring on the basis of skin color, sexual orientation, that violates FCC rules. You're right, and the people own the airways. Yeah, they do own the airways, and I mean, a lot of people probably place their children down in front of Disney animations and think, hey, this is Disney. It should be fine. And instead they see the mess that it is today, and not the wonderful joy that it was back. You know, I'm going to say 15 years ago, because this really started in the 2010s. 2000s Disney was still Disney. It was classic. But 2010 started to roll around, and they started to try to push certain things, and now they're just fully on board with it, no questions asked. And it's honestly really sad. So let's see. Yeah, many companies have been overhauling their policies, including Alphabet's, Google's, and the retail Target, which is good. Yeah, Target especially. Listen, I don't know if you've seen Target and their DEI products. Pretty horrible. Listen, no one needs a tuck-in on a woman's thong in a Pride section. That shouldn't be sold in a normal store. I'm not saying those people aren't people. You're a person. You're an adult. You can do whatever you want. I am just saying that it is weird to have that next to children's clothing. Never mind adult clothing. That feels like something you should have in another store that specializes in that kind of thing. That should not be anywhere near a normal store like Target. All right, that's just crazy. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can look up uh, Target Pride products, and you'll quickly understand what I'm talking about. So here, Carr, which is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the head of the FCC, in a letter addressed to Disney chief executive Bob Iger, which he's not having a great time, right? And yes, Gr1ngo, you are translucent. I'm surprised that you don't. I'm surprised the sun doesn't shine through you. But yeah, Bob Iger's not having a good time. He had a shitty time with Captain America. He's having a worse time with Snow White, which should have been a slam dunk. And he's pretty much putting all his marbles or chips in on Lilo and Stitch, that live action remake, to go well. And at least from the trailers, from what I see, it looks good. I don't think they're gonna mess up Stitch. I hope they don't, because it's Stitch. I mean, I hope they didn't mess up Snow White either, but they chose to go a different route, which is obviously not worked out for them. So yeah, he said he was concerned that even though Disney made changes to its DEI programs, the company might still be promoting DEI in a matter that does not comply with FCC regulations. He said that Disney's policies led to hirings that excluded certain people and led to shows being rejected for not being diverse enough. Yeah, that is concerning. What does diverse enough mean? All right, shouldn't a show just be created for the sake of being a show? You know? Yeah. Yeah, they had shows exactly. Yeah, Gr1ngo, you're going into on target. Good job, Gr1ngo. I'm not going to go any more on that because it is a little disturbing to me. Yeah, and the fact that it was children's clothing is also disturbing. Listen, children do not need that. Children need to grow up to be children. They're gonna be weird. They're gonna have things that they like that are weird. They're gonna just be weird in general. That doesn't mean every single thing they say needs to be taken as complete blank truth. All right. I mean, hell, if my parents, all right, listen to everything I said as the truth of like my inner truth, I'd be in worse places. All right. And kids are kids for a reason. They don't need that stuff. Let the parents want. If the parents really want to address that and talk to them about that, that's the job of a parent, not any government, not any store, nothing. Yeah, the investigation also includes Disney's TV network ABC. Carr said he opened a similar investigation last month on cable company Comcast and its entertainment unit, NBC Universal. So yeah, so pretty much Carr is going after everyone against DEI. Disney's in a bit of a tough spot, right? Not only are they missing out of money, but they've lost a lot of value. They pretty much lost, I think, a third or half of their value since I think Iger took over, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly. So yeah, Disney has found itself in the crosshairs of Republicans who called the company woke. It was in a month-long battle with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis after Disney executives in 2022 spoke out against the state's legislation that critics called the "Don't Say Gay" law. Yeah. So Disney's not been in the graces of the Republican Party, right? And unfortunately for them, the Republican Party runs everything: the House, the Senate, and the White House. So not a good party to be against right now. The company's live-action remake of Snow White was nicknamed Snow Woke by some conservative commentators for hiring a Latina actress to play the lead role. Now, listen, when it comes to actors and actresses being hired to play a role, do I have a bit of a problem with certain castings? Of course, right? Because especially if it's based off of something that has already been done, whether it's been a book or another movie, right? In this case, Snow White, listen, she's called Snow White not because she was born in a snowstorm, but because her skin is a fair white color, if not near translucent. It's a German fairy tale. It's been like that not since the German fairy tale, but it's also been was like that in the original Disney animation, which should be sacred to Disney executives, but it isn't. So listen, I understand the problem with the Latina being hired to be Snow White. I do have a little bit of an issue with it, but at the same time, I think, you know what? It's a company who wants to do what they want. They're free to do with it. But then again, at the end of the day, they're a company, and they'll know if it's working if they get money from it. Clearly, it's not working, and clearly they should really give up on this whole angle of DEI in movies because it's hurting their pockets. It's hurting investors. It's hurting people who have their investments or retirements accounts that have a partial investment in the Disney company, because Disney should be booming. It's Disney. It's the brand, if not the big pillar in the animation entertainment community or industry, I should say, for children. I mean, it's really sad to see where it's at now. Of course, listen, if any private company has the right to do what it's want in terms of its hiring and whatever products it wants to push out, so long as they comply with the law. If the Disney policies that are DEI are not complying with FCC law in terms of fair hiring, they deserve to be fined, if not taken to court, because they're taking jobs away from people who are more than qualified, if not have ideas to revolutionize their company. If not, they're just hurting themselves in the end, because clearly this whole DEI angle has not worked. I can tell you that. The last few Disney movies I've seen, horrible. I don't want to see any more right now. Unfortunately, I have to go see Minecraft this upcoming week probably. So my childhood is just getting shot in front of me, right? But yeah, the FCC having a day, pretty much its day with Disney. It's going to probably go to court. But yeah, I think that's the news for everyone right now, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just transition here to Solo. So, So I think that's enough news. I think talking about Turkey, talking about South Korean children being taken for about 50 years, and university students who are still dumb. Listen, I would know. I was one. I was pretty dumb sometimes. And Disney failing to understand that it's people, never mind it's the people within, but also probably the people who are paying for their product don't want DEI stuff. And if they don't realize that, they should just look at their market value. But I think with that, you're going to see the Gringo maybe tomorrow back on stream. If not, maybe Monday. We'll see. That's my first time doing a solo stream. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for tagging along. I hope you guys enjoyed the news as much as I did. But with that, I am not your reluctant gringo. Still a Mexican. Adios, salud, and a huevo.
You a racist? Do you hate Mexicans?
So long, gay boys!